Hey there, folks. I'm Matt Hansen,
And I'm John Johnson.
and you're listening to
Planes, Trains, and Comic Books.
the podcast where we discuss favorites we've reread, both classic and new comics we want to read, and everything else in between.
And here's the comic we picked this week.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Planes, Trains, and Comic Books. Today, we are reading, we're getting our medieval mouse on. We're reading a little book that, I don't know, it could be for all ages if your kids are not sensitive to somewhat of animal violence or whatever. But it is a little book called Mouse Guard that is by David Peterson. And I think it was put out by Arcadia Comics, which is kind of like an indie inset. Now it's put out by Boom, I think. So I think they got bought or something.
Bought or sold it to me, yeah.
This was something that started coming out when I worked at the comic book store in 2007 or 6. And I remember seeing it, like, the first issue on the shelves. I'm like, oh, that looks interesting, because it was a square. Like, the issues are actually, like, 5 or 6 by 6 instead of, like, normal comic book size. They're, like, little square books. And they're, like, as thick as a comic, but they're that size. And so they'll fit into a sleeve of comics. I think a golden age sleeve of comics, not a silver age. And so they're like kind of odd size, but I was like, oh, they look cool, and the art looked cool. And I read it, and I was like, oh, that was a fun little story. And then he just kept making them, and I think there's like 4 or 5 volumes of this now.
Yeah, I peeked ahead. I was like, oh wow, yeah, like there's this story goes on.
Yeah, and they go into like they go by seasons. So this is called the fall of 1149, right? Or
1152.
52, that's what it is. So yeah, 1152 is the year or whatever of the mouse year, whatever year they go by. But the other volumes are called like spring or winter. And
Winter is coming.
Winter is coming for the mice. So yeah, the Mouse Guard is a very little clever idea, I guess. We could set up this world. So the little tagline that they kind of explain in the front chapter of the book is, the mice struggle to live in safety and prosper among all of the world's harsh conditions and predators. Thus, the Mouse Guard was born. Like, because they need to help protect themselves, right? And then also, like, in between their little cities that they make, they have to protect the roads and stuff. So, like, from predators and or other ne'er-do-wells or whatever that are going on. So they're kind of like just like knights that are part of this band of what would you call it? Like
It's like the group of mice who are like kind of like more noble, wise, strong.
Right, but they're like commissioned by the cities to like walk people back and forth or protect the towns themselves.
They're kind of like the police.
They are you go. They are the police, which makes sense because they always. So later on, they talk about these possibly being bought and sold by like city, they're bribed by cities and stuff, and whatnot. So there's a little political espionage with them or something.
Yeah, I have to say for the first issue, I didn't expect it to get into that. I expected more. So like looking at this very much reminded me of. I mentioned this to Matt offhand. But there is a book series.
David the Gnome.
There's an old animated show called David the Gnome. I used to watch it when I was a kid. And
I just remember the opening credits where like David's riding a wolf.
Yeah.
Or no, a fox.
A fox, yeah.
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 I don't know.
Barely remember. I remember words, but I remember the melody. Anyway, so it's based on a book called Gnomes by Will Heigen and Ryan Porvlet. Pardon if I mispronounce their names.
Sure.
But basically it was like the secret world, and it's like this super. It's really. I remember the book so vividly from like when I was a kid, and I like how much it caught my eye because it's like you opened it up and it was like it's kind of like those incredible cross section books. I don't know if you've ever seen those. They have them for like
choose your own ending books or
no, like kind of like how things work, or it'll show you like a truck and then like kind of like a cross section.
Yes, you open it up.
Open it up. They have those for like everything
with
from,
the gnomes like tree
Yeah.
houses and stuff.
But yeah, it goes into like just like crazy detail of like the secret gnome culture
yeah,
and like like their society and how they build houses and like how they interact with animals and create things and like how there's like there's all this inner working stuff
Right.
and like obviously well advanced for above my kid. I'm just like, oh, pretty pictures and like I made me think of like just the detail of like what went into like because I like played with Legos and stuff too, so it would be like, oh, that's so cool, like this is showing like how they built these things or how they
Right.
made. So anyway, so this was very much reminded me of that. I really thought it was cool.
like has good world building. Like he really established. He puts a map at the beginning and stuff.
Yeah.
You get to see the whole world and it's all the cities and everything.
Yeah, I read his little forward and some stuff online after him, and it was really cool because like he was sitting on this idea and just kept growing. Like he started off with like 3, I think he said 3 of the mice characters, and he just kept growing and growing. And like I can't imagine like sitting at home and just being like, oh, it'd be funny if like there was like Wacko, Yakko, and Dot or whatever, like these 3 little characters. It's like, oh, and then you just kind of like start building
Slowly
this,
build a world.
and like, and then literally, like, because like now, like you said, there's like I don't know, like 5 or 6 volumes, and like it's basically like he created his own like Lord of the Rings style world, and
Right.
there's like there's this the world building and like all like everything to like some like religious aspects that they practice.
Religion, espionage, political intrigue, all that stuff.
Yeah, and so it was just really cool. I was I was sucked into this immediately.
Yes.
So
And we're making it sound a little bit more sophisticated than it is. Like the world is very rich. The story itself is pretty simple and straightforward.
Yeah.
There are some twists and turns that make it fun and like, what? Like, and
yeah, like you said, this is kind of in general. There's there's a little bit of blood. There's a little bit of animal on animal violence. Pretty much what you would think of, except
humans are not in this.
Yeah,
so.
and then like animals attacking animals, and just in this case, sometimes the mice have like little swords, and there's
Which is adorable. I was like, oh my god, that's so cute.
But so sometimes there's a little bit of like blood and violence, but it's not like over the top per se. At least not like with like.
Well, we'll get into it. We'll
yeah.
get into some of the stuff that's there.
But what was I feel like I was going to a point with that. And
you were just going to, you liked the world's richness and all that stuff. And
yeah, but I feel like I was saying something else and I forgot. Anyway, let's get into it.
Yeah, let's get into it. So the first issue is kind of like the introduction to the Mouse Guard idea and what it's about. And like specifically, these 3 mice named Liam, Kenzie, and Saxon. But before we meet them, we start off following this little grain mouse. He's like a grain merchant.
Yeah.
And he's bringing grain from one city to another. And that's like when you need Mouse Guard usually for protection. But this guy was like, nah, I'm fine. It's not that dangerous. It's not that far. Well, he sets down his little grain cart and, to take a break for a second. And he all of a sudden falls asleep, and then he hears something. He wakes up. He's like, "Oh, who's there?" And then disappears. We don't find him. But then that's why the Mouse Guard's called to investigate this disappearance of this grain merchant. So we meet the 3 main mice in this story, who is Liam, who's kind of like the young, like warrior mouse that's kind of new to the team, and
not quite proven himself yet. Like he's definitely like the like learning on his feet.
They call him Red Fur too because he's got red fur. So obviously, and then there's kind of like the old wise kind of like Donatello guy or whatever. And they're I don't know if it's a man. Like I don't know if these genders
we
of
don't know
these mice.
Yeah, this is very like not gender specific.
Yeah, but their name is Kenzie. Kenzie is the wise one. He's got they got like a staff. I'm gonna say he and they or whatever.
That's okay. We'll see, and that's interesting because like I kind of pictured Kinsey as like I don't know, like a wise strong female character, but. Again, like
look, we don't need your woke agenda.
No, but that is the nice thing about this is that like in general, like I think the only one that specifically like
there's 2. There's 2 that are the 2 leaders.
Yeah,
or the main leader of the Mouse Guard is named Gwendolyn, which is a fairly female name. So.
Yeah.
And then there's another mouse named Sadie who kind of helps him out throughout the story.
But in general, like there's not really like anything overly of like.
Yeah, literally the only difference between them is the color of their fur, and they all wear like the thing that distinguishes them is mouse guards, which I thought was funny. I'm like, so anybody could just say they are one, but they all have a cloak of a different color, and that's how they are distinguished as mouse guards. Like that's their uniform. Like, oh, don't you see my cloak? I'm a mouse guard. It's like, hey, motherfucker, I can take a cloak too and put it on, and guess what? I am not a mouse guard. Well, now I pretend to be mouse guard. I'll get some clout and just walk around cities and be like, "What's up? I'm mouse guard. See this pink cloak on? Yeah, I got that." So, yeah. So anyway, we got Kenzie, who's the purple mouse or whatever.
Kind of the like level-headed wise one.
Yeah, the wise mouse, and then Saxon, who's kind of like the experienced veteran warrior. He's not quite. It seems like he's not quite as old as Kenzie, but he's definitely like chomping at the bit to like fight. Or he's at least experienced in fighting, so he's like, that's his first go-to. It's kind of like, if you're a surgeon and everything looks like something to treat with surgery, he is a warrior, and he's like, let's fucking kick some ass.
Very much like you were doing Turtles. He's very much a Raphael.
Yes, there you go. Maybe that. Hey, hold on a second. There's some similarities here.
Wait a minute.
We got Donatello, the purple mouse, or Kenzie, the wise purple mouse with the staff. It's kind of like Donatello. And you got Saxon, the wild card red mouse. It's kind of like Raphael. Interesting. And then I don't know the other one.
Well, it's green. It's a green cape, but red fur. Maybe kind of like young and naive, like Michael. I don't know.
Anyway, I don't know. You're stretching.
We're reading too far, yeah.
But anyway, so they're investigating this grain merchant's missing, and so they're going around looking through the trees, looking for clues. They're like, this is interesting. There's no blood. That's weird because they're just assuming it's a predator that got him, so there should be blood around and stuff. And then they look around in the daytime the next day as they're searching, and they see like a hole in the ground. They're like, "What the hell is that?" And all of a sudden, a snake wraps around them, and they're like, "Oh my god, snake attack!" And Kenzie's able to like bop it on the head, and then like lets them escape, and they escape into the tree. In like a hole that the snake is too small to get into. And like Saxon's like, this is where you kind of get their personalities. They're introducing them. Saxon's like, why the fuck didn't we stay and fight? He doesn't use that language.
Did you see he cut right above one of the fangs? He cut off a fang.
Oh yeah, he cut off a fang.
Yeah, so like he's a little badass.
And Kenzie's like, we could totally take that snake on. And like, whoa, bro, like cool your jets. Like this is a big ass snake. And we're saying like mice, like they are mouse size, and this snake is probably like 4 feet long or something. It looked like a pretty long snake. So, but then they talk about like they're like their code of honor and stuff, and it's like it's not about what you fight, but what you fight for, or whatever, like shit like that. So that like really impresses on Liam. Yeah, exactly. Yes, there's a Master Splinter aspect to it. But yeah, so the next day they find another hole. And they're like, holy shit, it's the eggs of that snake. And this is where I was like, wow, they kind of go all out. This might not be for every kid, depending on what the parents allow them to read or how sensitive those kids are. But like they just jump down and like murder all these snake babies.
Liam stands guard and Kenzie and Saxon go down. And like it's graphic as far as like you can tell that they're destroying eggs. It's not like bloody or anything, but it's very much like,
yeah. Die, you fucking snakes. So yeah, they're smashing the snake eggs while Liam is up top, keeping guard. And while he's keeping guard, all of a sudden the mama snake is like, "What the fuck are you doing to my babies?" And attacks Liam. And Liam, in his little mind, he gets this little zoom up on his mouse face, which I thought was adorable. And it's like it's not about what you fight; it's what you fight for. And he's got like a little motto in his head. So he jumps at the snake and he's like grabs onto the last tooth, like the last fang that's out. Because the other one got cut off, and he like basically just jumps into the snake's mouth like head on, but with his sword out, and he's got this big fat wedge sword, and it goes through the snake's head. You get some blood and violence in there, and like they were talking about earlier the night before, like wow, it'd be impossible for anyone to kill that snake by themselves, let alone us three or whatever. Like anyone who did that would be like a legend, and so Kenzie and Saxon come out of the hole like, "Where's Liam?" and then and he's like inside the snake's mouth, like stuck because it's clamped on him now that it's dead, and they have to cut Liam out, and then also they cut the snake's belly to see if the merchant was there, and he was, so he did get eaten by the snake. Just whole though, no blood or anything.
Yep, swallowed whole.
So
Makes sense.
Yeah, but while they were looking through his cart of grain, they found something interesting. They found out that this grain merchant was a traitor because they find a map or it's a blueprint pretty much of a city. Their city's name is Lockhaven. That is where they came from. That's like the head Mouse Guard city, I guess, where they're all stationed from. And no one back in this time, you got to think like back in the day, like everybody's got blueprints nowadays. Back in the day, to have all the blueprints of a city meant you were down to no good. You know,
Basically, only the
Why
people
would you
who
need
planned and like are in control of the city would have that kind of stuff.
Right, and even them, they might not. But if you were a bad guy, that would be very useful information to know where to attack, where the entrances are, where the exits, all that stuff. So that's what they were doing. They were getting, or this guy was ferrying this map somewhere. They don't know where, but they know he's a goddamn traitor. And so that's like the mystery of this this whole story arc is like the setup of he's a traitor for who, for what,
We don't know.
we don't know. So then they are kind of deciding to go back to Lockhaven to tell everybody like, hey, it's there's a traitor or whatever. But in the meantime, the mouse Sadie is told, hey, go to this place called Caligero and meet with Conrad and let him know. We haven't heard from him is what it is. Like, we haven't heard from him. We're worried that he's like missing or dead or something, and maybe something bad's happened to him. And this place is kind of like the watching of the sea area. So like the harbors and the shoreline.
And it's this cute little building, like built into like some of the rocks. It's really, I love the architecture and like the thought that goes into.
You love mouse houses, don't you?
The world building.
You need to get into model building and just build mouse guard with villages and stuff. But yeah, so like we said, this is on the beach. Sadie used to be like a mouse guard on the beach, like on the shoreline. So that's like her whole old school like beat that she used to walk, I guess. And that's why they send her, because like, oh, this area and Conrad, or of Conrad, and he should be there. If he's not, he's dead, or something foul play has happened to him. So she goes in to Caligero when she gets there, and it's like this little building with like 3 levels, like kind of like a little house. And right when she closed the door and starts looking around, someone like comes out of the shadows and like puts a hook to her neck, and it's like, speak if you want to live or whatever. Like, tell me why you're here. And it turns out that's Conrad, and he's on edge because he knows there's a traitor. I don't know how he knows. Oh no, we find out later how he knows, right? He tells a story.
That's right.
Of how he found it out. Yeah, I forgot about that. But he's got like a peg leg and stuff, so he's obviously a hardened badass. And he tells after he hears Sadie speak, he says, "Oh, the reason why I wanted you to speak is because I've heard the voice of the guy that the traitor was talking to." So the grain merchant was at Caligero, the little place that they're at.
That's right.
Talking to someone, and Conrad just happened to be.
He was like
here.
up in the rafters.
Yeah.
He was drinking. He shows him with a tiny bottle.
He was busy. He was boozing up in the rafters, and these 2 mice came in. One of them was in shadows, and he doesn't know who that one was, but he knew the other one was the grain merchant, and they were talking, and so that's why he had her speak, because he knew that what the voice was of that one. So, or he knew the voice of the one in the shadows. So. Then instantly, like after that, you could tell he's probably drunk still, and maybe he's got some battle wounds that haven't quite healed with his brain, or just
he's not quite there.
Yeah, he's not quite there, and also he's kind of like old and drunk a lot. So he passes out, and he tells her he recaps like what happened and why he knows there's a traitor, and then like all of a sudden they try to leave. They're like, we got to go to Lockhaven and make sure that everybody knows this is a trap, or that there's people after them. And they try to open the doors, and the doors don't open. And they're like, what the heck? And they look, and we see this outside view of the house, and it's surrounded by crabs, goddamn crabs attacking. And it's funny because like all the mouse stuff is like, these are just regular like little crabs, but because they're mice, it's like these are gigantic, huge fucking crabs. So the crabs attack, and
they're like trying to get in there. Like it's pretty.
I think they know the crabs eat mice apparently.
Yeah.
So they're trying to get into this house.
This is the stuff that I really wanted to get into more. Like, there's a couple parts of this, but like I was like really curious about the interactions that they'd have with other creatures, and like are the other creatures just as sentient, or are they working for someone?
Well,
or are
we
they,
do know that certain creatures are like they talk about a war with
warlord weasel.
weasels.
Yes.
Yeah,
I remember.
They have wars with weasels.
Warlord weasel.
Yeah, and so that's like some war that I'm sure they have a volume of, probably, where the weasels are the evil rodents or whatever. Maybe it's just rodents.
I
that
expected
talk.
to maybe like see like rats are a little bigger, so maybe like a big bad rat or something.
Yeah, but they don't have any rats in this one. But it seems like snakes weren't really sentient. It just kind of was a monster. Same with the crabs. They don't really talk to each other or whatever like the mice do. And so maybe they do in their own crab language or something. But they seem to be cooperating with each other. But this is some more hardcore violence against another, animal. Like, what's his name? Conrad. He's got like this fish hook for his weapon, and he like shoves it in this crab's mouth and like drags it behind or underneath it, kind of like a hoth when he's tripping the at, and he ties it to another crab. What?
I was saying, wow, my best friend made a Star Wars reference for me. It was so nice.
Hey, that's the good one. And so then he ties it to another crab, so that the one that's got the hook in his mouth just gets like dragged behind the other crab. But yeah, like stuff like that. I was like, well, this is kind of hardcore. And then like Sadie's got, you can tell by the weapons who they are. So Sadie's got little two knives. And she's like, ha ha, like trying to stab him. But the crabs, goddamn it, they can't really be.
Yeah, I did like that. She like throws a knife at it and it just goes tink.
Yeah, it just bounces off. She does stab it in the belly, but it only goes in a little bit and doesn't really do anything. And then Conrad's able to like get a hold of its eyes, and like grabs both of its eyes, like it can't look anywhere except where Conrad's pointing his eyes. I thought that was funny. Like that's how you beat a crab. You just grab their eyes, or like a snail or something, But Conrad is like, get out of here, Gwen, or get out of here, Sadie. And so Sadie runs away.
Of what the pet coming doom.
Yeah, and so like we gotta warn Lockhaven, and he distracts the crabs, and they pounce on him and finish Conrad off. So Conrad dies. I thought maybe he was I thought maybe they're gonna have like, oh, he comes back and he was the traitor, because they don't show him die. They just show the crabs kind of land on him, and you hear like, ah. But they don't show him like getting torn apart or anything. So they could have done like a thing. But then they show her running away crying, and I'm like, oh, little mouse tears.
Yeah, the little mouse tears.
So then we cut to back to our boys, or our guys, or whatever, our soldiers, the mouse guards, Liam, Saxon, and Kenzie, and they are trying to get to this town called Brookstone. Brookstone. And Lockhaven and Brookstone. So Brookstone is kind of like the nearest town. So they're trying to like just get there to get supplies. They can make it back to Lockhaven after that. And they meet a mouse on the way near Midnight. And Liam, because he's so young, was like, hey, what's up, Midnight? And he's another mouse guard. So they're like, oh, he's one of us. So Liam was like, hey, man, you won't believe what we found. And then he was about to say, like, we found out there's a traitor and there's a map and all this stuff. But Kenzie, being smart, was like, yeah, we found a dead merchant and a snake. That's all we found. Be on your way, sir. Have a good one, Midnight. And he's like, all right, see you guys. And then, so he's like, yeah, you can't, like, trust everybody, Liam. You're learning, but, that's what it is. So they get to Barkstone. That's what it's called.
Oh, Barkstone.
Barkstone. I thought it was Brickstone because it's the
store.
I was thinking the store. It's made of bricks, but it's actually inside of a tree. That's another thing. They like make their like towns and stuff inside of trees or underground, but there's always like a little cute doorway and stuff. It's very adorable.
Yeah.
So Barkstone is inside of a tree. They get inside of the gates. We see that the people who watch the gates, little guard mice, they have little like executioner helmets on, or like leather masks on, which is interesting.
Yeah.
It's a little BDSM mouse mask.
That's funny you went there. I went Lord of the Rings right away with it because it kind of reminded me of like the Urukai masks.
Sure.
So well, that's just like I love medieval style stuff, and then I love like Lord of the Rings.
I went kinky, you went nerdy. That's
yeah,
all. And the two might cross.
they might cross sometimes. Yeah.
But they get into Barkstone and they're walking around and they're like, okay, we can like, relax a bit, get some food. But they also are like asking around because they're like, this town, we think it is like infiltrated. So we're asking around like, hey, do you know what this is? You know who might be the trader or whatever? And they're just kind of asking the local merchants, not really asking directly like that, but they're just kind of talking and like, maybe they'll slip in like, do you know anything about rice merchants and traders? Maybe hear any word about them? So like, they're just asking these questions, and word gets out in the town that there's some mouse guards asking questions, and there's 3 of them, of course, and everybody knows that. But basically, Barkstown is totally corrupt and infiltrated with spies, with these goddamn trader mice, and who. We find out later are all dressed like the guard mouse was, so they're all like into the weird Uruk-hai BDSM masks, and they're so like that's kind of like everybody here, all the mice here are those guys that are like the guards, and so they're like, oh my god, like we think the town's infiltrated, we got to split up, or we have to have a distraction. So Liam, you go this way, and specifically you talk to like the map maker and see if they know anything. But because they haven't got there yet into the town, but then me and Saxon or Kenzie and Saxon will make a distraction.
And Liam's gonna go and do it like undercover. He takes off his little garb and he's like.
By undercover, they just mean he takes off his cloak.
And then he's like, "Oh, he's a regular mouse now."
Oh, look at this regular mouse Johnson. That's what he is. No cloak for this guy. So, what Saxon and Kenzie do is they're like, "Hey, we're gonna do a duel in the middle of the town. It's gonna be awesome. 2 mouse guards fighting each other.
Y'all love it.
It's gonna be great." And so they do that, and of course, everybody in the town is like, "This is fucking awesome!" Like it's basically like 2, hardened warriors fighting, not to the death, but dueling each other, and they're making it look good. They're like totally like kayfabing, wrestling that shit up, and
a little too much because Kenzie's like, "Hey, you want to like." Come at me a little bit slower with those, and he's like, "Oh, we're gonna make it look good."
Yeah, we gotta make it look good. He punches him in the face, and
Kenzie's like, "All right then."
Yeah, so they go after each other. We get to see that Kenzie is no slouch and actually does a pretty good job. Does he win at the end? I can't remember.
Kenzie.
So
no, Kenzie almost best, but I think Saxon.
Okay, but yeah. In the meantime, like we said, Liam, puts his sword and his cloak in a barrel and to hide it, and goes to talk to the map maker. And just starts asking questions, and then he finds out about all the guard mice are upstairs in this place because the map mouse is like, "Oh, you're with us. Oh, cool. Like we're all upstairs putting on our like evil garb or whatever."
As soon as I saw him, because he walks in and the little mouse has like these little
he's got little jeweler's monocles
on each eye, and because. He already has beady eyes, and then they put these on top. I was like, "Oh, I bet he's a bad guy." Oh, like I was just like, "Oh, he's just too." It's too cutely, cleverly drawn to like be like, yeah. I don't. He got glasses. I don't trust it.
So specifically, Liam says like, "Oh, I was told you have a map to Lockhaven. Is that right? Or map of Lockhaven?" And he's like, "Oh, you've come to join the Axe." So the name of the trader group is called the Axe. He's like, "Oh, they're all upstairs." And this kind of reminded me of like Dragnet. I don't know if you ever saw the old Dragnet with Tom Hanks and Dan Aykroyd.
Yeah,
but they're like infiltrating this group called the Pagans, and they're like they have to like dress like punkers or whatever, and they go there, and then they have to like put on goat leggings and stuff. And they're like, we're pagans. And they're like walking around. It's exactly like that, where Liam has to put on the garb and pretend to be one of these black axe guards. And so he's on his own now. He's like fallen into the ranks with them just to like get information and maybe like be able to figure out who's behind it. And he's taken that upon himself. He hasn't, no one told him to do that. But he's a mouse who's got something to prove.
Yeah.
So he's like trying to be cool and be a badass. In the meantime, the fight is finishing up between Saxon and Kenzie. And yes, you're right. Saxon does win. But right when he wins, the Black Axe mice round them up and bind them, and then beat the shit out of them and drag them out of the city for dead. They leave them for dead, like outside of the city gates, to be eaten or whatnot by predators. And then the next issue starts, and we find out that they were taken by someone. We don't know who this new mouse is. It's a new mouse, and he brought him up to his house on top of a tree, and he's hanging them like he's gonna eat them or something. Like they're hanging by their feet from the ceiling.
Yeah, it was
down.
interesting.
Yeah, you're like, where's this going exactly? But they're like, where are we? And we find out that basically this mouse is an old hero, like the time of yore, like one of those old heroes from back in the day.
Yeah, he's basically like the old grizzled like old guard, and he's like, well, back in my day I was the badass, but like I'm old and retired now. What are you doing in these parts?
You call yourself a mouse guard?
Yeah.
Back when I was in the mouse guard, we walked uphill both ways, and all this shit. So
yeah, and he had a special moniker. He was basically, I guess the axe didn't used to be bad.
Well, no. He was the Black Axe.
He was the Black.
He was like the symbol of like badassery in the mouse guard. Basically, he made a name for himself, and his weapon was this big black axe. Well, the mice that are evil in this, the traitor mice, they have taken his moniker and called themselves the Axe, and one of them has stolen this mouse's axe, his black axe, and he is calling himself the Black Axe. So there is the traitor Black Axe and the old Black Axe, who we will now refer to as going forward as Old Fur, because his name is very hard to pronounce, his actual name, and I don't want to say Black Axe the whole time because there's another Black Axe who's the traitor Black Axe. So we'll get confused. But so Old Fur is like, you stole my axes, give him back my axe. And they're like, we don't know anything about an axe. He's like, well, you should, because I'm the Black Axe and you stole it. And they're like, Black Axe, that's not possible. He was fucking old, and he's dead. He's got to be dead. And he's like, and they call him Old Fur. So like, Old Fur's like, nah, I was Black Axe, and it was awesome. And you wish you could have been as cool as me or whatever. So basically, they kind of tell him, hey, Lockhaven is about to be attacked by this group called the Axe, and we have proof. Here's a map that we found, and they end up burning down his house because like they're fighting with him. And I thought this was funny. They're just fighting inside this tree that's burning down, and he's like, it's an old tree. Who gives a shit?
Whatever. Yeah, he's very old and doesn't care about it, and even his place apparently.
Yeah, all he cared about was that axe. So then we cut to the Axe, the group of traders called the Axe, and they're all in their S&M/Urukai gear, and Liam is with them he's the only one who's red though. I was like, he would stand out like a sore thumb because he's got red fur, and all the other mice have like gray or brown, yeah. And so he's sticking out, but he's talking to, or he's hearing other mice talk like, oh, I heard there was a third one, but I guess he ran off, that coward. And he's like, it's me. Like basically he's playing it real, he's real good. And so he I guess reveals himself to try to like get information or whatever and figure out what's going on.
I think he's also trying to leave a trail or a sign too, because they passed by the old merchant's grave.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And he was like gonna like put something there that was like different. I guess to try to show, if they come back by that way, like
like they would notice this and go like, oh, well, that's what it is. So he gets attacked by two of them, and then he gets captured by two of these mice, and they take him to meet
the commander,
the big bad commander, who's named the Axe.
The Black Axe.
Oh yeah, that's right. He's the traitor Black Axe.
He is calling himself the Black Axe because he stole the original Black Axe.
So they take him to this log that's hollow, of course, so it's all dark inside. So we don't get to see who it is. But like his voice sounds familiar. That's what Liam says. So as a reader, you're like, who have they talked to?
Yeah, I honestly didn't see this. As I was like, who is he talking to? Like, who's this traitor?
Who could it be? John was distraught. He was distraught from the mice.
I was literally.
drama.
I was like, what's going on?
Yeah. So that is the end of that. We're kind of left with like, who is the Black Axe, the traitor Black Axe? We might know him. So So and then also we're left with Kenzie and Saxon and Oldfur going to warn Lockhaven, hopefully before the traitor Black Axe gets there with his guys, and so they're kind of huffing it there, and the traitor Black Axe has Liam, and they're like, hey, we can use him. Like they have him kind of like a Mad Max style, not on a truck or whatever, but like they have him like strung up on like a carriage so that people could see him and they can use him as like leverage to open the gates of the town if it is locked. And so, but then what they don't know is mouse guards, they're ready to die for their cause. So
I have to say the imagery in this specific one I loved because they made it so dark and gruesome because they also added this like so it starts raining. This felt so much like the Two Towers, like Helm's Deep.
Helm's Deep.
It's like it starts raining. There gets like a reddish hue from obviously like the fall leaves coming through with the rain, and like it just is like it looks dark, gritty, and just like gross. And I just love the feel of this one specific. I just thought it was you could like it again. You just felt like, oh, the bad shit is coming.
Yes,
it was really nice.
So we're approaching Lockhaven with two, the bad guys and the good guys basically, and but luckily we're like, oh, who's gonna get there first? Because the Black Axe is pretty close, and someone comes in and says, oh my God, they're coming, and they're gonna attack. And who that person is Sadie. She comes in.
Yeah, she
clutch.
made it.
She comes in clutch. She made it faster than everybody, and she knows that there is a traitor. So she tells them not to open the gates to anybody and lock down, basically. So they do. They lock them down, and they're like, well, how do we know they're not in the city already? It's like, well, if they are, we locked them in the city at least, so we could find them and kill them. So
yeah, this guy's name is I guess he's
Rand.
an old guard Rand. Yeah.
His cloak is yellow. That's how you can tell him apart. So when the Black Axe gets there, they're like, ah, shit. It's locked down. Yeah, the door's locked, and there's archers waiting for us. So they were ready at least enough. They got enough heads up that they can fight. So a big battle ensues, and we see that, what was it, the Oldfur, Saxon, and Kenzie made it there just after the traitor Black Axe got there. So they're looking, and they're like, dang it, the battle started.
They're like, we got to figure out a way to get in there and help. And the way they're going to do that is there is basically, I believe it's Oldfur knows of a secret old passage.
And he would because
he's been around.
Old school guard.
So they're like, okay. And so they kind of follow him, and we don't see them for a bit. And the barricade is like you can see, like basically feel like the doors of the main like entrance like getting pushed in.
Right. If we're comparing this to Helm's Deep, it's when the Uruk-hai bring up that flaming like dog's head or whatever, and they're like shoving it into the gate. That's what's going on.
Very much about to break down the doors.
Yes. And so the barricade's barely holding, but they are able to breach the doors because they weren't able to put down the metal gate, those spiked metal gates that fall down.
Yeah.
The chain was stuck. They couldn't put it down. But the best thing, I like this part a lot. So one of the mice, he's one of the ones that dies because he gets shot right in the heart as he's doing this. But this mouse, who's like a very respectable mouse guard. Wendell?
Yeah.
Okay, so Wendell grabs some, I guess, lock cutters or whatever, bolt cutters, and he cuts the bolts on I think it's called a portcullis or
the metal gate.
The metal gate.
I don't remember what that one's called.
Whatever. It starts with a P. I can't remember what they're called. But yeah, and it falls down as these traitors are running through the gates and getting in, and it stabs a bunch of them, which I thought was fucking awesome. Oh, yeah. It just falls on a bunch of mice. They're like, God damn it. And so it kills a couple mice, and then it separates the ones that were in the front and through the gate already from the ones that are outside. And yeah, they could probably lift it with enough mice, but for the meantime, they are now stuck fighting inside. So they're like, get Gwendolyn. And Gwendolyn is the leader of the Mouse Guard. So they're like, if we get her, we can negotiate and get what we want.
She's kind of like, I would say kind of like a monarchy character, but she definitely isn't like evil.
Not monarchy.
Not monarchy. That's not the right word.
She's like the head of, she's like the Commissioner Gordon of
there
the
you go.
Mouse
That's
Guards.
better.
She's in charge of all of them. And we get to see a little bit behind the scenes of how the Mouse Guard works because the guy named Rand, or the mouse named Rand, he's got like a chessboard basically where he's got all his units. It's like Risk. He's got all his units in different areas. Like, well, if Saxon is there and Sadie is there, then like, you know, like, so they're planning on like who's going to be where and doing what. So it's kind of cool to see their inner workings. But one of my favorite and also most terrifying things now that I think about it.
Yes.
So they, of course, have.
Just want to point that the people inside, the Black Axe, the main head, did get inside.
Yes.
With a couple.
He's taking a bunch of guys to get Gwendolyn.
Yeah, so he's leading the charge inside.
But there's still people attacking outside, and there's archers and stuff shooting at them. But they also have another like weapon at their disposal. So in this town, there is a beekeeper, an apiary they call it.
Yep.
And now when I say bees, you gotta remember these are mice. These bees are fucking huge because they're like the size of the mouse's head, which is terrifying.
Yeah. I love the main keeper. He's got one like it's like a peregrine falcon on his arm. Like, yes, my pretty.
Yeah. It's like, and so he like spooks the bees, and he's like, well, hopefully we got enough honey and wax for the winter because they're gonna sting all these mice and it's gonna kill them. So he sends the bee masses. Release the bees. So all these mice are just getting fucking stung to death, which is pretty hardcore, I think. That's a pretty hardcore way to die.
Yeah.
So the Black Axe is now in the tower of the Mouse Guard. He's running up to where Gwendolyn's headquarters or her offices or whatever. And he's about there. Now, they did bring Redfur or what's his name? Liam, there you go. They brought Liam, who's still like tied up a bit with them, I guess for leverage. Like they're figuring they could tie both of them up. But he's finds some swords where they left him, and he's able to cut himself free. So now he's running up behind them, and he's grabbing swords and stuff so he can fight them. And he begins to fight like the back end of this group of mice running up to get Gwendolyn. And he's kicking some ass.
It's pretty awesome.
He's doing a pretty good job.
He's like, Revenge of the Redfur.
Yes. And so Black Axe, the traitor Black Axe, comes into the room where Gwendolyn is, and she's pretty, well prepared. She's a badass warrior. And she's got two people with her. And then as he's coming up on them, the Black Axe,
he's like, by the creed or whatever, the Black Axe, like, you shall bow down, and like we are taking control, basically.
Yes. Yeah, I'm taking over the Mouse Guard, and I will murder you if you say otherwise. Kind of thing. And Matt, like behind him, he's talking. There's like a painting of Gwendolyn, and it slowly begins to move because that is a trap door, or secret door, I should say. And the three mice, we got Old Fur, Kenzie, and Saxon. That's where their secret tunnel came up from.
This is like a shout out loud. I'm sorry. This is like a shout out move because they come through and the door creaks open and he's like, "You're not the Black Axe. I am."
Yeah. Old Fur runs out and is like, "You son of a bitch! You stole my axe." So then we get like an awesome battle scene where Saxon and Kenzie are kicking some soldier ass with the traitors, and we get a badass fight between Old Fur, who was the original Black Axe, and the traitor Black Axe, and they're fighting. We still don't know who that traitor is.
Well, this is where we learn because his helmet gets knocked off, which is funny because he's already a very dark colored mouse.
Yes,
but
should have known.
Yes, but his helmet gets knocked off, and it's Midnight.
That son of a bitch,
it's
Midnight,
the black mouse that was part of the guard that they met on the way to Barkstone.
And Liam almost told him that they knew the traitor was there and everything. So we find out that that is like the big reveal, like, it's Midnight.
It's Midnight. He's like, you dirty traitor.
Yeah. And I love that, like, they don't pull any punches with this. Like, Old Fur is getting stabbed and cut and everything. Like, he's all cut up at the end of this fight, but he's holding his own against this young mouse, Midnight, the traitor son of a bitch. And he actually... Old Fur is able to get a hold of the axe because his sword breaks, and he stabs Midnight in the side, like with the broken shards, just like Lord of the Rings style.
Yeah.
With Anduil or whatever the name of that fucking sword. What's the name of the sword?
I think so.
I can't. There's one. It's got two names. One starts with an N, and one starts with an A.
Yeah.
I don't remember what they are.
So Narcel is what it's called when it's broken.
There you go. So it's just like Narcel.
Narcel, the shards of Narcel.
The shards of Narcel. He stabs Midnight with it. and grabs his axe back, and he's like, "Finally, my axe!" And then it looks like he's about to fucking murder Midnight.
Oh yeah, he's about to
Yeah.
decapitate him.
And Gwendolyn's like, "Stop!" And he like, and then with the next scene we cut to is the axe embedded in the wall, holding Midnight, who's stabbed in the side and bleeding out, to the wall. Like the handle is like holding him up on against the wall. And Old Fur is like, "Oh, as you wish, milady. Of course, I would not do anything to."
She's like, "Do not kill him and make him a martyr."
Yeah. So then they banish him. They're like,
This was
"This
so
is the most hardcore thing."
yes.
Ever. They're like, "We banish you from all mousedom. So like, you will like not be allowed on any of our lands, any of our cities, anything."
They take away all of his like titles and specialty things that he had access to. And the best part is, I thought this was such a cool.
This is one of the best panels of all time.
Yeah.
So they're like, "Get out of our fucking land, and you will be." It says, "March him beyond the scent border,
The scent border.
and let him be almighty ruler outside of our territory." And as he's walking through this scent border, or at least the border that they show, there's just these wolves like waiting to tear this mouse apart.
That just is like, they're basically like, I was like, that's incredible. They're like, basically their area is downwind, and they're like, okay, you go walk past the scent border, quote unquote, and good luck. Like we leave you to literally to the wolves out there, and like if you survive, that's on you.
My question is there a mouse that just pisses all over this border all day long? Is that his job for the scent border?
This I don't know.
Rubbing his balls on everything? 'Cause that's how they spread their scents. So
They got to go and get wolf pee and like.
Oh, yeah.
How does it get?
Well, I think it's
going?
mouse pee. They're like, "This is our border. We're the mice."
No. Like the scent border made me think like that. Like that's right before, like they're downwind. So, like that's right before the scent would get picked up if you like went across it. That's what it made me think of in my head.
Maybe it's both.
Maybe.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
and then
I went from like, we have a scent and we made a border and no predators crossed, or like, that's like, hey, this is mouse territory. If you come in here.
I could see that too. I guess it's. I
Or
don't
it could
know.
be the other way around. Like, that's wolf territory. Don't
Yeah.
go over there. So they make him
the
go
scent.
there.
Like we smell the wolves there.
Yeah. So they send him over there to his death. I'm assuming. It'd be cool if he comes back all like hard,
Fucking riding a wolf.
skin. Yeah, that'd be badass. But I doubt that's what happens.
I'll be honest. I'm probably gonna read more because I was sucked in.
Yeah, hopefully he comes back riding a wolf. But yeah, so that's pretty much the end. And it ends with "Winter is coming," which is
coming.
this is this isn't before the books, but this is before Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
You know.
This is before that got part. I mean, and we know that. I'm sure that like that phrase obviously has like a further back reaching.
Right, but also, yeah, I mean, just winter back in the day was a lot scarier for
Yeah.
people anyway. So, and then they're mice. I mean, you know, it's got to be hard for mice too. So, yeah, that's the end of it. John, what would you give it? What'd you think?
I fucking loved it. There's a little prologue where Gwendolyn's like writing down the tale of this thing that happened, and
Yes.
like basically like
In her tome.
yeah, and Old Fur, like he didn't want to be reinstated, but he would like stay close for like protection and
Yeah, and
like,
but keep his identity secret because he doesn't want people to know it's him.
yeah, it was pretty fantastic. And they were like, and like Conrad's death will go down in the history books, you know, because he Sadie, you know, told of the tale of it.
The whole reason why they were able to prepare for the attack was because he killed himself and told Sadie to run,
yeah,
or he got killed by the
killed by
crabs.
the- yeah.
Right? He gave himself up to the crabs. So
I loved it. I loved everything about this. It was very much like, yeah, like we're gonna take like the idea of like medieval times and like that theme and aspect of it, and then throw it in, miniaturize it with like Once Upon a Time in a Forest.
Yes.
And I was like,
What a great callback. Fantastic movie.
yeah. So I was like, hell yes. Like, I was all down for this. This was I was sucked in from the beginning. This is when like just like Battle Pug, I will be reading more of this on
Sweet.
my own.
I'm glad. Yeah, well, all of them are on Hoopla, so
That's true.
if you have a library card and you want to read this digitally, you can get on Hoopla and log in with your library information, and you can read it for free.
Yeah, and like we said, this really like it feels like. I mean, so maybe you wouldn't give it to really young, but like if like they
I
understand.
gave it to my 8-year-old niece. I don't know if she's read it yet. I was kind of like, hopefully this isn't too violent for her, but you know, I don't have kids, so I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, you could read this, right?
It depends.
It's
Yeah,
got mice. That's fun.
cute little mice. Yeah, he's kind of they're killing snake babies.
Snake babies.
That's
Conrad gets eaten alive by crabs.
yeah.
Pretty hardcore.
So it borders that, like, it depends how helicoptery maybe you are, or
Right,
how
yeah.
much you want to expose and what you feel about it. I mean,
If this
tell
was in the
kids-
80s, this would be a Dawn Bluth Disney movie.
That's
right?
true.
So-
Oh my
so,
God, would that
yeah.
be true?
Yeah.
But yeah. But overall, I loved it. I will be reading more, and I'm gonna say only because it's the first, and I didn't get quite as much of like it.
I'll say this: I have read further, and it does get better, and like like the
I assume
story gets better.
that's why I was like, this is the first one.
This is the Fellowship, right?
Yeah, and it gives.
Fellowship of the Mouse.
And I didn't get as much into like the expansive of the universe, and like I really was wanting to see hopefully more of like interacting with like the other animals and like how that becomes across. Like I said, because it reminded me of the gnome stuff, but I didn't expect there to be mouse espionage and betrayal like right away in this.
Yeah.
It was very Game of Thrones, and I was like, holy shit, like.
But on a mouse.
But on a mouse level, yeah, but adorable.
There's no red wedding, but there is a snake red wedding. They murder some
They
snake babies.
Yeah, and like as they're stabbing the eggs, there's just little snake like bodies just like flying in the air.
Yes.
But like it's all in the shadows, so it's not bloody and gory. It's just
Right.
there's some it's going down though.
Right.
But yeah, I loved everything about this, and like you said, the scale when it needed to be simple, but show you the scale, seeing like mouse shadows or like there's Sadie is traveling in a leaf down like one of the rivers to get to the sea, the seashore to see Conrad initially, and I love that it's kind of out of Lord of the Rings. She's riding a little like cupped leaf, and it shows her in it like paddling off, and then it pans back to show like like
The vista or whatever.
a basic river, right? We could probably walk across, but like to her, it's gigantic, and you can tell just her in this little leaf paddling in the middle of this like vast, what
Yes.
seems like a giant river. It's amazing. It was. I
It
love
was literally a 4-inch deep
Yeah.
stream or whatever. Yeah.
So I love I love all the thought that went into this, and yeah, I'm down for it. It was a good story, and again, since it was the first one, I'm assuming that it definitely gets more intense and it gets more into some of the things I'm curious about. I'm gonna give it an 8. It was solid, and I definitely could have gone higher, but knowing that there's more, like I will hold off on giving
Sweet.
it more praise than that.
Okay. Well, yeah, I have read more. I read, I think I read the Winter volume, which is the next one. And then I think I read the Black Axe volume, but I read them like as they were coming out in issues. So, because I collected this for a while, and then I sold all my comics, and now I'm like, God damn it, those are worth money now. But I didn't know at the time. I'm like, who's going to care about this mouse?
Didn't this win an Eisner Award?
Yes, this won Eisner's. Multiple of the books won Eisner's. This one did, and a couple of the other ones. So
Nice.
the Black Axe, it goes back and tells the Black Axe's history story.
Oh, nice.
So that's kind of cool too. But yeah, so I like this one a lot. It was one of those ones, kind of like a surprise, happy find or whatever in a comic book store. Every now and then, most of the time, you like look through the shelves, you're like, that looks cool, and you buy it, and you're like, wow, now I got to figure out what to do with this. Like I got to put this in a box, I guess, because I don't want to throw it away, but I also don't want to read it again. So
You've made this reference before, and this one made me think of that. Like, sometimes you're like, okay, you spent $2.99, $3.99 on a comic, and it's like
$5.99
or $5, God forbid, like
Whatever they are
$5.99
now.
on a comic, and like you read it, and you're like, wow, that was fast. I wasted $5. So even though this isn't super wordy, it like keeps you like it's involved so much that you're like paying like it.
Yes.
It read by fast, but it didn't feel like, oh man, I breezed through that. It was like, I don't know. I was so like taken into the world, like it didn't like.
That's good.
Yeah.
You were immersed
I
in
was.
the environment. So
I am the key demographic for this comic.
Perfect. So yeah, I'm gonna give this one, because it is the first one, and it takes a little while to get the story going. Because if you don't care about the mice, like if you're not in the world at first, you're kind of like whatever. Like, okay, there's a trader. Who cares? And then the second issue's kind of like, oh, it's Crab Shack. There's crab's going. Only when the third issue happens does it kind of like pick up really with the story.
Yeah.
So I feel like this one, it's a nice introduction, but it's it is kind of like Fellowship, where it's like we're gonna spend fucking 6 chapters in the Shire and a 7th chapter with Tom Bombadil before anything really happens. So, yeah, I feel like that's kind of.
Want to sing some songs before you go?
No, stop singing. Fucking trees. God damn it. Stop singing. Yeah. So I feel like the other ones, like you said, you hadn't read them, but I've read further. I think those ones are like better as far as you already know the world when you get into those, so you don't have to have like the time to build this stuff up necessarily. So I feel like this one to me is more of a 7. The art is really good.
Oh, yeah.
If it's like I don't know, I love the little world. I love the little mice uniforms and the little mice swords and the mice little kink masks that they wear and stuff. So like it's all really cute. It's like it's funny because they're taking it so seriously, but they're little tiny mice. So it's like it's just adorable. It's kind of like if you had like a little puppy, in like a Conan the Barbarian costume or something. It's like, he thinks he's tough, but it's a little puppy, like, so it's like that. But then you see him like murder shit and you're like, oh, that's right. Oh. This is like a cool, badass comic. So I like that. I like the art. This story was a little, it took a while to get going, but like, just know it does get better. And this wasn't bad as far as the whole arc, So, by the end of it, I was like fully engrossed and everything. Like I said, by the 3rd issue, I was like, all right, now let's pick it up. The first 2, I was like, oh yeah. I forgot, like, this one's like, here's the 3 mice, and there was a grain mouse, and, like, they fight a snake or whatever. So, it definitely took a little bit to grow on me when I first read it, like, 15 years ago or whatever. But since I knew that was coming this time, it flowed a bit more. So just know that. But it is a 7 for me. You said 8 for you. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that's Mouse Guard, everybody. I hope you guys kind of want to pick it up and check it out because it is one of the, like, we'll say lesser known indie books out there. And like, I don't know, this definitely deserves to get like read a lot, especially like in schools or with kids. You could, if you like the Redwall series, it's kind of like that. That's a little bit more, like that's like a book series that came out about mice and stuff. So it's along those lines.
I was telling my wife about it and she said it reminded her of The Secrets of NIMH.
Yeah, it's like that too. Okay. So there's a bit of, it's a like fantasy / it's not really I guess it's fantasy because it's Mice World, but then it's medieval. It's like medieval times and that kind of stuff. So it's really fun world. I like, I just like all the little mice things. All the little mice towns, like the coming up with that. I bet that's like the funnest stuff to draw too. Like, let me create this underground town or this inside of a tree town and stuff. So, yeah, I love that stuff. So. I really want people to like check this out, especially if you have kids and stuff. Obviously, like maybe look at it first and just double check that you're okay with the violence that's in it. But I feel like if you had a 10-year-old or something that 8 to 12, they'd be fine. I don't have kids, so I don't know. I'm like, yeah, 6-year-old. Here you go. I'm like, yeah, well, here's Spawn, kid. Like, let me read that. So I was fucking 6 when I read Spawn. That's, it was the 90s though. We were latchkey kids. Different time. So, that is it for Mouse Guard. Next week, John, we're reading. I'm like interjecting.
That's right. Because you usually ask me, but I know you were like, nah, I got next week.
Yeah, I got next week's pick. I read this book this week, and it blew my mind. It knocked my socks off, and that's rarely a thing that happens with comics, and especially with indie comics. This book came out of nowhere. I randomly was looking at Source Point Press website, and there was a comic series called Touching Evil that was on issue 21, and I was like, 21 issues from an indie comic publisher. That's interesting. That's got to be something interesting or something good because it keeps going. So on their website, the issue was free, the first issue, and I was like, well, let me check it out if it's free. And goddamn, if it wasn't a fine issue, and then I couldn't put the damn series down. I had to buy all 18 issues that were available digitally, and I read them all within like a span of a day because they're so good. I like needed to find. I was sleeping like, what's gonna happen? Like, it was amazing how good this story was. So, we're gonna read the first arc. I can't remember the name of it, but it's volume 1. It's the first 7 issues of the series called Touching Evil by Dan Doty. And yeah, it's just a fantastic indie comic that I was blown away by, and I think everybody should know about. So since I have a comic book podcast, I will shout it out as loud as I can.
I'm excited to read it. As much as you're hyped, and I was like, oh wow.
Yeah, hopefully I'm not hyping it too much, but I was very much like, wow, this is a fantastically written, paced, like I was just blown away at how complex yet engaging the story was. It didn't lose me ever, all this kind of stuff. So I have almost read the entire thing. Unfortunately, the last 3 issues aren't available digitally because the last one's coming out next week, actually. And I guess Source Point Press doesn't release them digitally until after a while. So like you have to only buy the print ones. So I'm like, okay, I gotta get those. But now I gotta buy every issue anyway. I gotta find them. I'm buying the hardcover. I bought the whole like multiple ways of buying this book because that's how much I liked it. So
that's wild.
Hopefully you guys like it as well because we're reading it. Goddamn it! But it's basically a supernatural murder mystery. That's got like. It's about a woman who gets the power of killing evil people. Like whoever she touches, if they're evil, they die, and like that's the seller or whatever. So, yeah, and that's what we're reading next week. If you guys have any comments,
for Walken movie.
Oh, it is like Dead Zone. It's kind of like Dead Zone.
The Dead Zone.
Dead Zone. I'm trapped in the Dead Zone. It's wild. It's wild. It's wild. Yeah, anyway, he doesn't say any of those words.
Frankenstein never scared me.
This watch.
Marsupials do. Because they're fast.
Wow. All right, enough walking.
Anyway.
If you guys have any comments, questions, or suggestions, you can email us at planestrains@comicbooks, all one word, @gmail.com.
And don't forget about our Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube channel for exclusive content. Matt's pumping them out. Will has got some of his Alien run coming out soon.
Yeah, number 3 should be next week or the week after that.
And there is some stuff that I will come out with eventually that you'll see. But anyway.
You might see John's face sometime on our YouTube channel.
Sometime on there. But don't forget about our coffee, too. That's ko-fi.com/Planes, Trains, and Comic Books, all one word. It's the place to get everything that we're doing all in one spot. It lets you know everything that's come out that week. We have our newsletter you can sign up for. We also have tiers where you can donate if you want extra content, if you want to suggest a book, or if you want to just say, hey, we love what you guys are doing. And,
give us a spiff, as my grandma used to call it.
What?
A spiff. You don't know what a spiff is? Come on. That's some like,
that sounds like
that's like
paraphernalia,
Mr.
sir.
Burns language there.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway. So yeah, with that being said, we'll see you guys in the next one.
On the next one.
Bye.